Good morning, everyone. As I'm sure you probably noticed by now, I'm not here today. Despite this, we're still going to take notes and go over genetics just like I promised. So what we're going to do, I'm going to review the vocab with you that we had gone over yesterday, as well as go over some more Punnett square problems. I'm going to ask you questions, give you some time, and then we'll go over the questions together as a class. Now we're going to begin with part 2 of our genetics information. Be sure to record all of the information in your notes. The notes will be checked and graded. Anything that appears up on the board should also be put in your notes, as well as any other additional information. So let's begin with some vocab. To start with, we discussed traits. Traits are characteristics in an organism. For example, hair color, eye color, height. These are all traits. All the different versions of a trait, for example, brown hair versus blonde hair. These two different versions of the trait hair color are referred to as the alleles. Because body cells are diploid, which means they have 2 chromosomes for every trait, one they receive from their mother and one they receive from their father. Some organisms can have 2 of the same alleles for a trait. For example, you could receive both a brown hair allele from your mom and a brown-haired allele from your father. Or you could receive 2 different versions, 2 different alleles for the trait hair color. Your mom could give you a blonde allele, and your father could give you a brown hair allele. If an organism has 2 of the same trait, we call this homozygous. 2 of the same alleles for a particular trait. If an organism has 2 different alleles, we call that organism heterozygous. For hair color, this would mean the organism has a dominant B for brown hair and a recessive B for blonde hair. Because brown hair is dominant, the heterozygous organism will appear to have brown hair. The dominant allele will be the allele that shows up when both of them are present. In this example, blonde is the recessive allele. So the only way for an organism to appear blonde is if there are no dominant alleles present. So both of the 2 alleles will be recessive. When I refer to a capital B and a little b, or a capital B and a capital B, or little b and a little b, I'm referring to the alleles that an organism possesses. The alleles that they have are referred to as the genotype of an organism. When you look at an organism and describe the physical appearance of the organism, that's referred to as the phenotype. Saying brown hair versus blonde hair, I'm describing in words the physical appearance or the phenotype. Just looking at an organism, you'll be able to see the phenotype. but you will not necessarily know the organism's genotype. For example, if a person has brown hair, that's their phenotype. For the genotype, they could either have a capital B and another capital B, which would mean they would be homozygous for brown hair, or they could have a capital B and a little b, which means they are heterozygous. Both organisms would still have brown hair because brown is dominant. So now I have a question for you all. If an organism is homozygous and has brown hair, what is his or her genotype? Everyone just take a second, write down the answer on your own page. In just a minute, the substitute can either call on you, or if the substitute prefers, you can just shout out the answer as a class. The video can be paused until everyone's ready. And at any point, we can also go back and you can pause the video to write down extra notes. So if everyone's ready, the correct answer to the question should be a capital B and a capital B. Homozygous means that both of the alleles, homo means the same, so both of the alleles should be the same. And the individual here has brown hair. Brown is dominant, which is why we see the capital B's. The question also asks for the genotype, which means I should be writing down letters. The genotype would be the two alleles, as opposed to writing down the physical appearance of the organism. Okay. Let's move on now to some punnett squares. Now let's do some punnett squares. Punnett squares are used to show the process of fertilization. To start with today, we're going to use a hypothetical example in plants. In this example, we're going to say the trait of height in plants has two alleles. One is tall, the other's a short allele. In this example, the tall allele is dominant to the short allele. If you mate a homozygous tall plant with a short plant, we're going to try and figure out what percentage of the offspring will be short. To start with, you're going to write down both parents' genotypes. Remember, one of the parents would be homozygous tall, and the other parent is short. Take a second and think about what it means if the parent is short. What would the genotype be? After you write down both parents' genotypes, you're going to figure out what kind of sex cells each parent is creating based off of these genotypes. Remember, each genotype shows that the parent has two alleles. When sex cells are created, those two alleles separate. One of the alleles will go into one sex cell, the other allele will go into the other sex cell. Then we're going to draw our punnett square. This will look like a window. The sex cells of each parent will go above and to the side of the punnett square. It doesn't matter if you put the dads on one half and the moms on the other side. Just as long as one parent goes up top and one parent goes on the side. The boxes in the punnett square each represent an offspring. So you're going to figure out, if you combine one sex cell with the other sex cell, what do the offspring look like? And you're going to create the phenotype percentages. In this example, the two possible phenotypes are tall or short. So you'll list both tall and short, and you'll figure out how many boxes, how many of the offspring out of the 4 possible ones are tall, and what percentage is that? How many out of the 4 are short, and what percentage is that? Now take a few minutes and do all this work out. You shouldn't just put the answer. All of the work that I've shown you is what you should do every single time you're asked a punnett square problem. So now would be a good time to pause the video and do all of the work out. Just hit play in a few minutes when everyone's ready. Okay, to answer this problem set, the two parent genotypes. One parent is homozygous tall, and the other plant is short. The homozygous tall plant. Homozygous means they're both the same, so the two alleles will be identical. And the plant is tall, which we've been told is dominant. Because tall is dominant, we're going to use the capital T for the tall dominant plant. So homozygous tall should be 2 capital T's.